they're pretty insane to not, with all these teams reaching out, with knowing how Deshaun Watson, how unhappy and he is and pretty much miserable, you can put it that way, and showing his displeasure. And I think that if he goes to what you said, Ed, and sitting out and not playing for the season and how serious he is about it, I think at that point is when the Texans will release him. If we're seeing them so hard set on not getting him traded, not letting him go to another team, I think that's what it's going to have to probably take, if it does, for the Texans to finally be like, okay. We typically see once a player is, so displeased, or they're just not having some agreements, or they're each unhappy with each other. We've seen it in football before. We've seen it in baseball. We've seen it in basketball. Even they'll go ahead and trade that player. They're like, you're out of here. They get him to another team, whether it's a team of his choosing or not. So, but they're typically out, and they're like, okay, this is enough. But at the same time, it's how much is enough for them to go ahead and go forward with that.
I agree. It's going to have to go to a drastic measure, a la Deshaun sitting out for an entire year, before the Texans come to their senses and say, okay, well, we've done everything that we could. We've held our ground, and Deshaun he's not going to budge on his end. So who's going to give up? Why are we going to continue to bang our heads against the wall with this situation when we can just trade Deshaun, get some draft picks, get a lot of get some capital, get some talent back here in return for him, and just move on.
Yeah, and especially if they're seeing this is what you can get will put you in a so much better place as a team. Maybe it's not this season, but maybe it's the season after that or following or whatnot, to get them back to the Texans team that they once were and being able to contend again. I don't know, if that's not drawing them, and having all of these teams offer up, hey, pretty much, all of so much in a silver platter. If that's not happening, I think it's going to have to go a little drastic for them to be like, okay, or, put their hands up and we'll let you go.
Yes. And who would want to have this cloud just lingering over their heads for an elongated period of time, Joanna, if you're the Texans? And surely Deshaun he wants this cloud completely clear of him. He wants to be clear and move on to wherever it is, whether it's Miami or I know the Washington football team. There's reports that they're not interested. They don't have the draft capital for him, but there's so many other teams he could go to. The 49ers, for instance. There's a myriad of other teams that the New York Jets could possibly take him. If he's willing to go there. So many other teams. Mm-hmm. If Drew Brees does not come back, the New Orleans Saints could be in play for him. Mm-hmm. The Carolina Panthers. There's so many other football teams that would love to have him. The Dallas Cowboys you mentioned. We don't know what's going to happen with Dak Prescott.
Right.
Nice segue, huh?
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Ed. So it's just right now a wait and see, and just hopefully Deshaun gets his, I won't say his, gets his wish. And
in the end, I want everybody to be happy. Yes. I want Deshaun to be happy wherever he is. And I want the Houston Texans to be happy in their situation, and just get this whole situation, this whole mess, this whole drama done and over with. And again, both parties move on to the future, because this can't last forever.
Nope. Exactly. So it seems like for something that's not lasting as long as we thought is that Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, their relationship coming to an end, Ed. That
it seems like it.
Me to, I don't know how I feel about this. It's sad, really sad, and I'm heartbroken with Dak Prescott not continuing with the Dallas Cowboys, especially after the drastic injury that he had, season-ending injury.
And how Dak bet on himself on the franchise tag last year, and it backfired on him with, like you said, that gruesome injury he suffered. I believe that was against the New York Giants. I believe that was against the Giants that day. Mm-hmm. It was just a horrible injury. And that just, again, the Dallas Cowboys just spiraled out of control after that. And they just weren't the same. It's incredible that the Cowboys gave him an offer. They offered him a contract last year, an extension, but it wasn't to his liking. He's wanting in the $40 million plus range, and the Cowboys weren't willing to pay him that much, which is why they had to franchise tag him, because they couldn't come to terms on this extension. The Cowboys held where they held with what they were going to pay him, And Dak was like, okay, that's not enough. I want more than that. That's why the tag was signed, and we're in the situation where we are right now, where Dak's in limbo.
Yeah. So, and with that, there's also been the rumor, and we've talked about it, and it still seems that that's the noise out there with Russell Wilson going to the Dallas Cowboys. And that seems that a little bit more definitive as time goes on. So I'm curious, with the quarterback that Russell Wilson is, in that contract, that's going to be a pretty penny. Is that maybe a reason of, hey, Dak Prescott not getting what he wants because they're really actually pursuing Russell Wilson and signing him as their definitive quarterback and maybe offering Russell Wilson or giving him what he wants in that contract, and why they're not agreeing to extend Dak Prescott and then maybe inevitably part ways? It's possible. Playing devil's advocate here.
It's possible. Who knows what's going on in the mind of Jerry Jones? Obviously, he would love to have Russell Wilson down there. And Russell, by all accounts, the Dallas Cowboys are one of 4 teams that he would love to go to if a trade were to actually happen, where if he was able to be dealt either there or Las Vegas or Chicago or New Orleans, I believe. Those are the 4 teams that he said that he would like to go to from all the reports I've read, and I'm sure you've read as well. But if you're talking straight up trade between Russell and Dak would have to sign the franchise tag first with the Cowboys, and then he would have to agree to that trade if they were to swap quarterbacks. If Dak was to go to Seattle and Russell was to go to Dallas, that's what would have to happen there. But then maybe they just let Dak wither away if you're the Cowboys, and if the Cowboys and the Seahawks can come to an agreement on a trade, then you make the trade. You make the deal to send him down there.
But just saying no trade, not a trade-wise situation. Just, outright, maybe signing Russell Wilson to a contract and then letting Dak Prescott go. Obviously, they haven't come to terms, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be anytime soon before we see them come to any type of agreement. And it seems like the longer you wait, longer time goes by, the less possibility that will happen.
True. Yeah, it's less likely it will happen. You're right.
It doesn't mean that there has to be a quarterback to get a trade or for that scenario to happen with Russell Wilson still having a contract with the Seahawks, being that, with that case, they can trade for anyone else.
They can. But if you're going to get rid of Russell Wilson, you've got to have somebody to replace him. And why not have it be like Dak Prescott, or who would be out there in the free agent market quarterback wise? There's nobody out there that would even come close to the talent of Russell Wilson.
We talked about it. Seattle Seahawks, they're not in the best situation. We saw how much they suffered during the season, and how much they've really have been challenged the past couple of seasons. Maybe this is a time to where they actually have to rebuild.
I don't think Pete Carroll is ready for a rebuild, especially at his age and where they've been success-wise with Russell Wilson over the last 9 years. I don't know if they're ready. I don't know if they want to go that route and do a rebuild, especially in the division. Joe, in the division they're in, the NFC West division, if you use the word rebuild, that's like, okay, well, you're in last place every year because the Rams are getting better. The Rams have a fantastic defense. They got Matthew Stafford there. They've got weapons offensively. The 49ers are going to bounce back from a health standpoint. That's one of the main reasons why they struggled last year, because they couldn't stay healthy. So Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are going to do everything they can in their abilities to make the 49ers better. We just talked about the Cardinals. They're loading up on talent as well, bringing Watt into the fold to make that defense much better. If Larry Fitzgerald comes back, that's going to make Kyler Murray that much better. He's got that solid weapon he can go to outside of DeAndre Hopkins. So the Cardinals are going to get better. Rebuild in the NFC West, that is the death knell for a football team.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm throwing it out there. At this point, another unhappy player with their team, and it seems like that's more inevitable. That's going to happen. That Russell Wilson is not going to continue with the Seattle Seahawks.
It could, but of the 4 teams, of the Saints, the Raiders, the Bears, and the Cowboys, if a trade were to happen between those 4 teams, the Seahawks are going to want a quarterback. And of those 4 teams, who would be the most suited quarterback to go up there? It'd be Derek Carr. Because you don't know if Drew Brees may or may not come back. So your quarterback situation is in limbo with the Saints because you don't know what Drew is going to decide to do. The Bears have Trubisky and Nick Foles. The Seahawks wouldn't want either one of those guys. The Cowboys, they're in limbo as well with Dak Prescott just hanging out there in the balance. So it's either Derek Carr or Dak Prescott signs that franchise tag and he agrees to the trade to Seattle. If it's one of those four teams that Russell Wilson wants to go to, those are the scenarios I see.
So let's say that's not the case and it's not a trade with Seattle. Where would Dak Prescott go to next? What is his career after this? I know we've mentioned it a couple of times, but
yeah,
and there's been some activity and some movement since, of course. So
yes.
would it possibly land him?
A lot of the teams that we mentioned, Deshaun Watson could go to, like a San Francisco 49ers, like a Carolina Panthers. Would the Washington football team make a run at Dak Prescott? A Cowboy going to within the division?
Which that brings us next to Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So Alex Smith has been released from Washington, the Washington football team. So which for me, that just really sucks. My heart does break for Alex and everything, everything he went through, having the comeback season. He was, I would say the player of the year for me, as far as, that goes, because that's something that you didn't expect. And for even the team to make it as far as they did, with Alex Smith coming back for the 2020 season. Now they release him. There's some news with that, which you told me about, the GQ article.
Yes.
I haven't read.
Correct that he is soon to be released. He has not been released officially yet.
Okay. Soon to be released.
But yeah, so it's inevitable that they're going to release him. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what it sounds like. And Alex Smith speaking out on that article as well, which, I'll have you speak to that, Ed, here in a moment. But yeah, that would probably be a team that Dak Prescott can go to with a release of Alex Smith from the Washington football team.
Sure. Or maybe a Sam Darnold could go to the Washington football team. I know they're monitoring what the future of the Jets quarterback could hold. So I'm sure they would like to have a young quarterback or somebody in place to go alongside Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen, the two guys that Ron Rivera knows so well. But yeah, back to that GQ article. It was pretty eye-opening for me, Joanna. This article came out last Thursday, I believe, as PLR and I were getting ready to tape courtside. I saw this tweet come out from some of my guys back home in the DMV, some of the guys that cover the Washington football team. And it just said that some of the quotes that Alex said that in this GQ article with Clay Skipper, quote unquote, he said they never thought, they being the Washington football team, they never thought I was coming back. No one there. I did all my rehab, but walking in the building with what I had, it's like you got three eyes. Like they didn't really expect Alex Smith to walk back in the building and actually be a part of the football team. They were just going to move on with Kyle Allen and Dwayne Haskins Jr., but then Alex Smith kind of threw a wrench into their game plan, and they just kind of had to go with him because he was there and he was as healthy as he could from a physical standpoint. He wasn't 100%. Coming off 17 surgeries, nobody would be 100%. But the fact that he walked in the building, they couldn't just dismiss him because he's a part of their football team.
Yeah. Right. I don't know what to say to that, Ed. I really don't.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it reportedly went that way, but for him to be the comeback player of the year, that's great for him to come back with everything that he had to go through physically from that horrible accident he had the season before that put his life in jeopardy. But he came back and fought back, and he led the Washington football team to a 5-2 record from if I can recall. He was one of the primary reasons why they won the division, and they were in that playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because he won 5 games for them in such a weak NFC East division. Those 5 games turned out to be really 5 crucial victories in a very weak division.
Yes, and it's still to be official, but it's per report by Ian Rappaport, saying the Washington football team is expected to part ways with quarterback Alex Smith in the coming days, per a source. So he's only 36. So he wants to come back, and he knows he wants to come back and keep playing, Alex Smith. So Alex Smith was traded to Washington before the 2018 season. He led, the team to 6-3 start before suffering his compound fracture. That happened. He comes back. He he takes the team to the playoffs, something unexpected.